Hello. I've been wanting to do an excerpt for a little bit, and I think I have found the scene that I want to read and share with you all. It's one of the first scenes that I wrote. It's one of the earlier scenes, and it's one of my favorite ones, given the scope of what happens, the ramifications, the action sequences, and just the vivid overall descriptiveness of how it was written and what it means for the story going, forward in the beginning. And I've been wanting to read an excerpt for a little bit, and I think now's the perfect time to do so. So let's dive in. Come along with me. Up, 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 up. Sound exploded into my ears as grape shot. Alert and shaking the exhaustion from my limbs, I stood onto my feet and found us fully surrounded by a phalanx of over 500 in strength. What the hell is this? Where'd they come from? The closest creature was 4 yards away and was hideously savage in appearance. Its torso was twice the size of my own, and adorned in brown and stale green scales. Its chest split into 2 shoulders, like a man's, but unlike any anatomy or physiological structure I had ever witnessed, 2 extra arms sprouted on each side of its ribcage. Its neck was thick and its head oval, with 2 backward curving spines on the crown of its head. Its torso ended in a long, ever-extending cord of flexible serpentine muscle. 4 sheaths protruded over its shoulder blades, and they were all empty. Bright, slanted turquoise eyes regarded me with menacing aggression, yet their glare also consisted of sincere confusion. Dozens of the creatures were peering offensively at my companion and me. A red and orange sand-filled wind was blowing in far from the right. The sand danced and leapt to and fro across the blades and spears of our assailants. I was groping for the plate on my chest in order to produce the implausible strength that I would need to defeat or at least stand my ground against such a force. The plate, with its godly power to transmute genetics and biology, was gone. It's been gone, the dragon to my left proclaimed, ever since we first met. Aghast, my knees buckled at how utterly defenseless I was. From the mass of serpentine warriors, a long, thick spear with wicked blades on either side was raised towards me and roughly embedded in the ground at my feet. A sense of honor? I don't understand, I gawked. The figure flicked out a forked purple tongue in response and produced 4 wicked outward curving blades. You were only given that weapon so that these savages could further enjoy killing you. They enjoy a challenge. As the dragon was speaking, the horde of antagonists surged forward, and hundreds of spears were let loose in our direction. Shit, Zamus! It's us against these immeasurable odds. Into the halls of my demise. It's only time we say our goodbyes. I shook my head at the incredulous nonsense my mind was spewing, and, plucking the double-bladed spear from the ground, I marveled at its unlikely lightness. With much more accuracy than I expected, I slashed open the stomach of one. Dodging its writhing body, I spun and impaled a leaping creature above me, its body fully uncoiled. The being went stiff, and I immediately collapsed under its weight. The blade facing downwards sunk into my calf, and I was struck in the chest with a spear and hurled backwards. My head hit the ground as I slid, and blood erupted from my mouth, gushing out of me and threatening to suffocate and drown me. Zamus? A stiff, serpentine warrior collapsed on top of me with enough force and velocity to shatter every bone and rupture the organs in my body. The shaft of the spear splintered, the blade piercing me even deeper. Yes, I weakly rasped through a mouthful of blood. Goodbye. I felt so weary and exhausted. Closing my eyes felt like the only good thing to do that would benefit me. The vibrations and heavy sounds of battle, the flapping of wings, the hissing of long blades through the air, the monstrous cacophony of reptilian roaring, all ceased at once. Everything was frozen, and I felt light as the particles incessantly running rampant through the air. I experienced the sensation of traversing skywards. Nothing was moving. The mammoth form of the dragon revealed itself, frozen in place, with its gargantuan wings spread out beautifully, its talons inches from the ground, its tail coiled yet taut as its victim lay paralyzed by time. Hundreds of spears lay buried in the air. The saliva of both the dragon and its enemies hung like droplets from their maws. A startled serpentine creature hung next to the forepaw of the dragon. The anatomical position of its claws clearly expressed that it had struck a physical blow to its foe, and, due to the serpent's physical alignment, that blow had been effective. Peculiarly, I felt myself being drawn closer and closer towards the dragon. I couldn't differentiate between feeling whether it was willingly or unwillingly. I disappeared into its muscular forearm without any resistance. I felt very heavy all of a sudden and weighed down, yet I didn't at all feel unfamiliar. Sound and hundreds of bodies burst into life all around me. Fight them or leave? Fight them, I roared. My left foreleg twisted and caught one of the monsters from its torso and sliced up to its neck. Flat pieces of steel struck me everywhere, but none were able to penetrate my scaly armor. Gliding to the left, I snapped my wings shut and crawled onto the ground. The thick cord of my tail raced through the air and tossed several dozens of the forearmed savages onto the ground. How to breathe fire? I don't know. Maybe it's as simple as thinking about it. No flames bellowed from my jaws. Abandoning the thought and tilting my body, I spiraled into the air, steadying my form through leveling out my wings, and glided very close to the ground. The serpents fell as the edges of my wings slit their more susceptible scaly armor, speeding through disorganized ranks in their ineffective arms of war. I grabbed a dozen in each forepaw, and pumping my wings furiously, rose in height. My talons loosened, and thrashing wildly and screaming, my enemies descended to their deaths. With the whip of my tail, swords of my wings, and impenetrable armor of my scales, I fought, defended, and attacked for a period vacant of time. I struck out with my tail, which rapidly uncoiled with a flick. The air parted and collapsed under the blow. My claws lashed out. Nothing. I acutely spun and jabbed with a wing thrust. Nothing. Spinning around, I met only an orange and brown plain that lay still as death. Looking down and around, I saw why. The landscape was swelling with freshly ravaged S and L-shaped corpses. They were everywhere. Under my talons, scattered in heaps, some isolated, others relaxed and spread out in neat and shabby rows. The serpent corpses had been brutally produced. Many heads, tails, arms, and torsos had been dismembered, even their elongated four-digit claws. Sapphire blood had filthily mixed with the ground. Yes, you killed them all. A familiar voice suddenly intoned. I found myself being ejected from the dragon's mouth all of a sudden. Hey, where am I going? What's happening? Out. You're getting out, spoke the voice that I now recognized as the dragon's. Wait for it. It shouldn't take long, it growled. From the pile of serpent corpses, a much smaller shape freed itself, and at rapid speed, propelled itself in my direction. 2 long spears had mutilated its form. One had skewered the humanoid torso, whilst another had obliterated its lower leg. Hey, that's me! That's mine! It's me! I yelled. Yes, hummed the dragon. How can that be me, though? My body's right here, I thought, looking down. I didn't see any flesh, though. To my horror and further confusion, all I saw was a pale grayish-white stream of vapor. I didn't have much time to stare and ponder. The moment I looked up, I was pierced hard by a physical mass. The next thing I knew is that I could feel. A split second later, a limitless and unbearable pain exploded everywhere in the shattered husk that was my body. I screamed and collapsed, wailing and sobbing through the implausible pain. My chest and leg blazing like a forest fire, and at the same time frozen with crippling frostbite like the Arctic. I whimpered and bit down on my lip hard, viciously drawing blood. I'm broken! What am I even doing here? I cried. For the first time, the dragon didn't respond. I yelped and savagely ground my teeth together as I felt my leg and chest bones horrifically grind and shift, rearranging themselves. As my piercing wails rose, they were met by the sound of two boulders screeching against each other. Everything went black. Well, that's that. I know it was a lot, but it's one of my favorite scenes from Volume 1 anyways, Part 1 of Book 1 of the Anura Chronicles. And I hope that you enjoyed this excerpt, and let me know in the comments how you find it. And looking forward to giving you more developments, with the rest of the series as I go. Thanks.